So my presentation is on Estonia, which I'm going to give a brief introduction to in a minute. Yeah, there's my name, just you down.
Okay.
Get that down. Alright. Right, so things I'm going to look at in this presentation include an introduction to the country in Estonia, give you an idea of what kind of country it is, the population and what that means for the media system, etc. Reporters Without Borders and how they view Estonia as a country, and to what extent did they agree that it would be a liberally free country for the media, for the newspapers, etc., etc. The government and key political figures, so we're going to look at the leading party of Estonia, the Prime Minister, who has been Prime Minister since 2005, so obviously his input is important. It's going to be quite key in terms of looking at journalism in Estonia. And then we're going to look at some statute law and analyse to what extent that allows for a free press, free media in Estonia. So firstly, let's get a brief overview of Estonia, what it's like as a country. It's an ex-Soviet country in southern Scandinavia, so it's kind of surrounded by Norway, Denmark, those kind of countries. Estimated population of 1.35 million, so compare that to a country like ours, which has a population of 65 million now. Obviously the media system is going to be significantly smaller than one like ours, so that's important to remember when analysing the media system in Estonia. Around 900,000 of that population is Estonian speaking, so if we're talking about Estonian media specifically within Estonia, then those numbers are still going to be quite different and that media system becomes even smaller still. And as I've said, it's a significantly smaller system than we have, with only 250 titles of newspapers and magazines in the whole country that are in the Estonian language for Estonian people, and that information comes from that source there. So this is how Reporters Without Borders, that's very small, but this is how Reporters Without Borders look at Estonia. I can read it if you can't see it too well. In 2011, Reporters Without Borders ranked them 9th in the world in terms of press freedom. And then in 2012, it went way up to 3rd. So last year they were ranked 3rd in the world, I think only behind Finland and the Netherlands for press freedom. And then this year they came down to 11th. The reasons for that I might be able to explain later in the presentation, but right now they are ranked as 11th in the world. And if we compare that to countries like ours, the UK ranked 29th, the USA is ranked 32nd, and the two countries that surround, so we've got Estonia in 11th. To give you an idea, perhaps, of more well-known countries that are in that ballpark, Sweden are ranked 10th, Austria are ranked 12th. So you might know a little bit more about those countries than you do about Estonia. That might give you an idea of where we are in terms of the ranking system. But if you consider that we consider our country to be pretty free, pretty liberal, we have the freedom to report, we have the freedom to say what we want, freedom of expression. We're ranked 29th. So, 11th is actually pretty good if you think about it. Right, let's look at the Estonian government. The current party leading Estonia is known as the Reform Party, and it's led by a guy called Andrus Ansip. He's led the party for a long, long time. He's been Prime Minister of Estonia since 2005. So that's about 8 years. That's a long time to be Prime Minister of the country. So obviously his influence on the media systems and on the law in Estonia is going to be quite influential when we look at how free the country is. Earlier in his career, he founded Tartu Radio, which is one of the leading radio stations in Estonia. Tartu is the second largest city in Estonia behind Tallinn. And so Tartu Radio, which is like the radio station for Tartu, for the current Prime Minister of Estonia to have founded a radio station earlier in his career, that says a lot about how he's going to view freedom of the press, freedom of the media. It says that he's not really going to be concerned with oppressing the media. He's going to be actually quite he's going to be able to relate to the media, he's going to be able to relate to the radio stations, and he's going to be able to relate to their right to broadcast and their right to tell the truth. According to the official website of the Reform Party, they favour what we call market liberalism. Now, market liberalism, as the name suggests, is where you advocate a liberal and free market. And whilst that doesn't necessarily prove that, by association, there's going to be a direct correlation with market liberalism and freedom of the press, there is a connection there, because it's unlikely that you're going to have a leader who is in favour of a liberal market, but then on the other hand oppress the media and oppress the press of the country. So whilst there's no direct correlation, there is a link, and I think that link should be made. And on July 31st, July 2007, Ansip, the Prime Minister, was recognised for his service in fight for the Estonian freedom and Estonian national idea. by the Estonian Central Council in Canada. So he's quite a credible guy when you look at him. He's got a history that links him with journalism. He's been awarded for preserving the Estonian idea, preserving the country. So you can see already that he's not the kind of guy, he's not the guy who's going to lead a government that's going to oppress the press, that's going to, restrict the freedom of expression, restrict the freedom to express whatever you want in the press or otherwise. So that's a little bit about the government, about the Prime Minister. Now we can look at some statute law. I don't really want to read all that out. I'll read out the first little bit and you can read the rest yourselves if you want. The basic principles of media law in Estonia include the freedom of communication, the freedom to tell the truth, the avoidance of censorship, journalist responsibility, avoidance of damage to journalism, and justification of criticism of public figures. Now those will sound very liberal, sort of very free ideas. And I think to a large extent they are upheld in Estonia. I mean, if you look at some of these and compare it to some of the countries like Russia and Putin that Vera's already talked about today, the freedom to tell the truth. I mean, Vera said quite explicitly that Putin hates opposition. And so, even if people are telling the truth, if they oppose him, they're oppressed. In Estonia, that's not the case. It is sort of it's cemented in statute law that if you're telling the truth, you have the freedom to do that, regardless of whether you're opposing the government or you're in favour of them. If you're telling the truth, you have a right to do that. The avoidance of censorship, that's another one. Putin is obviously very hot on censorship, so likes to censor a lot of things out. And if we look at even a country like the USA, which we consider to be pretty liberal, pretty civilized, the freedom to tell the truth. Look at a guy like Edward Snowden. He's wanted by the USA, by the FBI, simply for telling the truth. He could face a prison sentence for that. Whereas in Estonia, it says quite explicitly you have the right to do that. If you look at that case, Edward Snowden, would it be different in Estonia? Would it be the same thing? Would he be being hunted by the authorities of his country for telling the truth? Maybe, maybe not. All this information comes from that website there. So a little bit more on the statute law. Which says Estonia offers a liberal environment for the media. There is no specific law on the press in Estonia. Cases regarding libel are covered by civil and criminal codes. So you can see the environment in which the press operate within Estonia. It's not a restrictive environment. It's a very liberal environment where the press are free to do what they want, within reason. Obviously there is censorship to a degree, but that does not include censoring things just for the sake of, minimizing opposition. It's a fair country where you're allowed to tell the truth, you're allowed to report on what's happening, and you're allowed to have a viewpoint, compared to some of the other countries like Belarus and Russia, where that doesn't happen. So, what conclusions can we draw? Estonia, under the Reform Party, is a liberal and relatively free country in terms of, the press freedom. And the Reporters Without Borders ranking system shows us that. Ranked 11th in the world, UK is ranked 29th. We can see, from our perspective, how we consider our country to be free. Estonia is ranked considerably higher than us. So we can see from that what a free and liberal country they are in terms of the media system. And we've looked at the statute law, we've seen how that allows for press freedom when compared to other countries. We've seen what the statute law is, and we've seen how that sometimes, in the Western world, how, even it isn't upheld then. Cases like Edward Snowden, stuff like that. And that's pretty much it. These are the sources I used. Anyone's got any questions?
Okay, we'll leave time for questions at the end.
Okay.
Thank you. So, James.
Yeah, I got it well.